Boston College men's basketball lands a pair of transfers who, if anything, will bring a lot more excitement next season in Chestnut Hill.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. I am the editor of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering this team for 10 years and been a Boston College supporter for many more, and I'm glad you're here to join us. This is your team every day here at Locked On BC, and today's episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire Stick 4K. Turn any TV into Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Now, on today's show, it is Transfer Portal Palooza again here on Locked On Boston College. We have a new target for the defense for Bill O'Brien. We'll end the show with this one, ending with football portal news. How crazy is that? Because there's two transfers on the basketball team that I think really need to be talked about. One, from a lower conference that is a defensive guru who could help Earl Grant finally get that gritty, not pretty game plan going, and a 5-star local recruit finally coming home that's going to make a huge difference for BC. So let's kick it off with that. Now, over I think it was Easter weekend, Boston College did land a pair of transfers for basketball. After losing 4 players, they have now filled out with 4 new transfers. The first one they landed was from Lynn, Massachusetts. He played prep in Arizona, and his name is Jason Asemota. He's a 6'8" wing who was a 5-star on 247 before he was recruited by Baylor. He was the 29th best player in the class of 2024 by ESPN on the overtime elite circuit out of Hillcrest Prep in Phoenix. And he is a big get for BC. Like, you know, a big 6'8" wing that can jump out of the building, plus athleticism. That seems to be a big talking point of this group that they're bringing in, is plus athleticism. You bring him in, and you bring in Aiden Shaw, and you surround them with Jaden Hastings. You're talking athleticism, 3 very athletic players. The fact that BC, if you look at what Asemota did last year, this was a 5-star recruit, a big deal for Baylor when they landed him. He didn't play all that much. He only averaged, a couple points a game. He came off the bench. He, played only 24 games, 148 minutes for the Bears. And, you didn't really get to see what he is capable of. And this, I feel, is a very good philosophy for Earl Grant. Like, if you have to go out there, he tried last year. What Earl Grant tried last year was he went for a couple guys he knew, Josh Beadle, one of them, and then some lower level players to see how they would pan out. Chad Venning, A+, good job. Dion Brown, not so great. Roger McFarland, didn't work out very well either. So those were 3 players from lower levels. For the most part, except for the guy we're going to talk about in a minute, he has gone to the Power 5 and found players that were more highly recruited that just have not panned out yet. Now, the big key is here, you got to coach them up and you got to get them up to that level. If you believe Earl Grant can do this, a guy like Jason Asemota should get you really excited because he has a huge upside. This is a guy that coming out of high school looked NBA bound in a year. Like there's, when you're ranked a 5-star by 247, you're basically on that fast track to a one and done and go into the NBA. And he just didn't get that chance. Now, there's been, hits or misses for Earl Grant in terms of how he has addressed his roster and developed guys. But I look at some of the recruits that he's brought in and guys like Quinton Post, right? When you looked at what Quinton Post was before he got to BC, he was at Mississippi State. He was averaging just over 3 points per game, kind of like Asemota. He was underutilized. He was on the bench. They brought him in. They figured it out. Now, Quentin Post, he's like a golden unicorn. Like, you're not going to find a lot of Quentin Posts out there. But if this is the kind of guy that Earl Grant watches the film, his assistants watch the film and say, hey, we can get him on the court and we can make him a starter day one and we can unlock that 5-star talent. Man, that is a great get for Boston College. Like this is an exciting one for BC. And the second piece that's really exciting about it is he's from Lin Lin, the city of sin. You never go back the way you came in. You know, that you have a former 5-star. How many times in the last 25 years have we talked about, even during Al Skinner time, all those blue chips that were in your own backyard that you were not able to land? And yes, in plain recruiting, you still have not been able to really attack the local recruiting that you would hope that you would be able to do. But when you're able to hit a transfer like this, you have a ready-made reclamation project that could put BC in a much more advantageous light in the local media. People are going to eat this up. Like if Asemota can come in and score 15 points a game, 14 points a game, and like he is that forward that goes along with Donald Hand, the wing that goes along with Donald Hand, that will make this team fun again. Now, again, I'm caveating all of this with, if this is going to work, Earl Grant has to be the answer. Because if Earl Grant brings him in and doesn't know what to do with him, or screws around with the lineups and doesn't have an idea of what the best lineup is until 2/3 through the season, all of this is kapoof. We need to have this guy, Earl Grant is on borrowed time. If he messes this year up, the odds are that he won't be back the next year. But now he has the chips in place that if he is the answer, and some people out there think he is, he has to be able to not screw this up. He has to be able to do it and win some games with these guys. Develop Jason Asemota, develop Aiden Shaw, and put them out there with Jaden Hastings, with Fred Payne, with Donald Hand. And you have a 5 right there, if that's your starting 5, and we'll talk about the next one in a minute, that could win you a lot of games and make BC a really sneaky team in the ACC. It did not, you watched what ACC basketball was last year. Outside of Duke, Louisville, and one other team that I'm totally blanking on right now, and you're going to all yell at me, BC was not that far off. Like if they had a sort of, competent program put together from that last year and didn't flame out with their roster development, then they could have won some games. I like what Earl Grant's done so far. He got rid of some players I just didn't think worked out. Elijah Strong, Chaz Kelly, Josh Beadle. These guys were just not working. Deion Brown. You got the guys that weren't working, and you're bringing in athletes and guys with high upside. And in a moment, there's another guy coming in, and he comes from a smaller school, but he brings a skill set that I really feel will be important for BC when it comes to the 2025 season. I'll explain who that is in just a moment. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. And if you've been watching these games, everything's exciting with the Celtics and that putback dunk last night. It's crazy. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. I love to use Game Time to get my tickets to sporting events. Boston sporting events are hard to get seats for. Game Time has me covered. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black, and I want to shout out all my everydayers who've made Locked On Boston College their first listen every single day. You guys are the MVPs. I'm so glad you're back with us to talk Portal Talk here at BC, Locked On BC. And when you're done with this episode, I want you to check out Locked On ACC. Guess what, folks? I'm going to be joining their little roundtable this week. So if you're looking for some fireworks, I bet you're going to want to check out Locked On ACC. Make sure you check out that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, the defense on BC's basketball team was bad last year. They allowed over 70 points per game, and there were games where that defense just looked clueless. It was bad, and some of it was coaching, some of it was scheme, some of it was the personnel you had. You had to make changes because, Earl Grant is now on his year 4 or 5 of pretty not gritty, or gritty not pretty. Sorry, got it backwards there, and he needed somebody to really anchor that defense. You've got Jaden Hastings, who should be fun on defense. You now have Aiden Shaw, who also should be a really good defensive presence. But your crown jewel now, and hopefully one that will help with Donald Hand is not the best defensively. He's a little bit more of a liability, but you now have your point guard, and your point guard can play defense. And you landed a transfer out of South Dakota, Chase Forte. Now, Chase Forte is on he's on his 5th school in 5 years. He has played at Northwestern State, Gulf Coast State Community College, UNC Asheville, and South Dakota. So this is his 5th school. So 2 community colleges, I believe, UNC Asheville and South Dakota. He was one of the best defensive players in the Summit League, winning Defensive Player of the Year last year. That is good. He's not a bad scorer either. So you have a guy who can handle the ball. He averaged, what did he average? I shot 47% from the field, averaging over 14 points per game, 17 points per game, 4.4 rebounds, and 3.2 assists. God, I love that they brought this guy in because BC needed a point guard after what we saw with Chaz Kelly last year, where it doesn't really work. You had Fred Payne, you have Donald Ham, but those aren't really point guards. You bring in an experienced ball handler. You got a journeyman here. You don't really see journeyman at BC, like 5th team in 5 years. Forte, obviously, defense is his forte. Not to be punny here, but couldn't help it there. So now, if Earl probably is going to go with 3 guards like he usually likes to do, he's going to go with Hand, Payne, and Chase Forte. So you have your 3 guards right there. And then off the bench, you can bring in some, either Caleb Steger, their freshman, or, there's potentially other guys out there they're looking at. Cam Scott out of South Carolina is a name I've been keeping an eye on. He's a former 4-star as well. So you have your guards. Then you bring out, Asemota and Hastings. Boom, you got it. And if you want to go big, you have your kid from Butler, Bodden. So you have, Capke. Sorry, I'm having a moment there. Bodden Capke. So you have some lineups that you can make. And what I love about this is it gives Earl some flexibility. Now, what also I love also scares me because I'm worried that he may not make the best choices when it comes to aligning who he should be playing and who should be on the bench. But, we're going to hope springs eternal here. Maybe he has the guys now to do it. You have your shooter. Donald Hand is your scorer. He's more of a liability on defense than some of the other guys, but he can certainly be your volume scorer. Fred Payne, I'm very excited to see what he can do. And now you have your ball distributor. You have somebody which you did not have last year. You really didn't have a point guard. You went from Jaden Zachary, who was one of the best point guards in the ACC last year for Clemson, to Chaz Kelly. Yep. The less said there, the better. Chaz there's a lot of expectations for him. It just didn't work out. So now you flip it again. You bring in Forte, a defensive player of the year. You could teach defense, but if a kid already knows how to do it, that is an A+. You don't need to worry. Well, I guess you'd have to worry, but my hope is that Earl can't screw that up. but anything's possible, right? Like he has a guy now that can do this. Now, the bigger question is, I got a few points here before of basketball stuff before we head on out to our football finale. It's 4 in and 4 out now for BC. They have 4 transfers in, 4 transfers out. Basketball, for the first time ever, you can have 15 players on your roster. It was 12 before. So BC could technically still add some players if they want to. Will they? Obviously, NIL costs. Like you can add players, but it's going to cost you money. I mentioned Cam Scott. This is a name I'd watch for if they're going to go for anybody. I feel like I've seen a lot of connections with BC through social media with him. He fits the mold of Aiden Shaw and Asemota, like these under recruited. I mean, sorry, blue chip recruits that just didn't turn out to anything yet and haven't really had a chance. Cam Scott was a high 4-star, almost 5-star last year. Didn't play at all for NC State and then went into the portal, kind of like Asemota. So I'd love to have him here. I think he'd be great. You know, I think you'd get him for 3 years. Awesome. Maybe 4 if they do that 5-year thing that the NCAA keeps talking about, where they're going to give all players 5 years. This is all stuff that we're going to be watching for. But if you were to look at the roster right now, could they be competitive next year? I think they could. I worry because it's Earl Grant, and I'm, last couple of years, I don't feel like he's maximized what he's had. Last year wasn't just maximizing. I feel like he didn't do a great job in the portal. I'm going to give him a pat on the back this time. I think he's done a nice job in the portal. Now it's his turn to go around and coach this team up, maximize what you have, and win some games, because the ACC is only going to get better. Louisville, as we saw, took 1 year and they went from laughingstock to one of the best in the country. Miami is killing it in the portal. Florida State is always killing it in the portal. Virginia, they just got a new coach. They're going to be, on the up and up. You have to strike soon. You have the guys now. The excuses are gone. Go and win some basketball games. Speaking of winning some basketball games, interestingly enough, I saw Brandon Marcello of 247 tweet out that the ACC is expected to shrink the conference games from 20 to 18 next year. So 20 ACC games to 18. Hallelujah. This is great. This is not just great for BC because you don't have to play 2 more conference games. It's good for the conference. And I honestly, I have not even looked at. I saw this right before I went online. But I don't know how many the SEC play or the Big Ten. But the ACC has this tendency to cannibalize itself. And when they cannibalize themselves and just keep losing to, each guy, that circle, like this team loses to this team, who loses to this team. In the end, it just keeps them out of the playoff. Out of the tournament. 2 less losses, on paper for each team could be big. For BC, I love that. That means you can schedule Providence. I don't think they'll do that, but some what you would think of bye games, teams that you should beat. That'd be great. The other part of me would worry because you already have enough of those games and you usually screw it up. I hope to gosh that doesn't happen, because having 2 games on your schedule, Albany and something else, would be a catastrophic failure before you even start ACC play. So here's to hoping that would actually work out. Now, in our final segment, BC football landed 2 commitments over the last week in the transfer portal. They have another one coming on campus. I'll tell you who this is and what we should be thinking about this. I'll give you that in just a moment. The NBA playoffs are almost here. They're here. And FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy. Watching the Celtics and Orlando, the spreads, I've been thinking every time I look at that spread, Orlando has been playing so tough against the C's that I'm going with Orlando in a lot of these, even though I think the Celtics are going to win. But, sometimes I'm not right. And then if I don't want to, I can go from 3-pointers. So looking at players like, Jason Tatum, how many free throws he's going to hit. You can do anything. Plus, after the game tips off, you can combine live prep bets into a same bet parlay for a chance to win big. So you know what you need to do. Head over to fanduel.com right now and claim $250 in bonus bets today. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. This is your team every day, and we are a 5-day-a-week podcast. The only podcast out there for Boston College that does this 5 days a week. And I'm here to talk a little bit more about the portal. The portal is churning and going crazy. And I'm not even touching women's basketball, man. I don't know what's going on over there. I was just texting our women's basketball guy. I think there's one player left from last year as Andrea Daly just entered the portal. I don't know what's going on with them, but I'm here to talk football because that mess is for another day. For football, we BC landed 2 transfers. They've lost a few too. Jacoby Robinson, Otto Hess, Bryce Steele, George Rooks. They've all entered the portal. Gives BC a little bit of flexibility too, especially with it sounds like that roster cap might not happen. It sounds like the judge really doesn't want that to happen. So that's good for BC. And BC is active right now in the portal. And they've already they already have a visitor set up for this week. And the visitor is a linebacker. Again, this is the 3rd linebacker that they've looked at. And his name is I want to say it's Ella. It's Ela Boykin. I'm going to go with Ela Boykin. I'm going to guess that's how you say it. Now, if you don't know who Ela Boykin is, I don't blame you. But he was SAC defensive freshman of the year, all conference for Barton College. Now, my question for you, unless you grew up near there, where's Barton College? You got it? Well, Barton College is a Division II school. He had quite a season. He was 6'3", 235 pounds. He's built just like a linebacker you'd want. And after landing Jason Hewlett, I'm totally okay with this. I think this is fine. They're gonna probably give him a scholarship if he comes here, but he's also got visits set up to West Virginia, Western Kentucky, and Liberty. Nice depth piece after losing Bryce Steele. This is good. If you look at where he came from, I think that gives you a better view of why he's popping up now. He came from a school in high school that was terrible and probably didn't get really recruited all that much. And that's probably why he ended up in a D2 school. He has the size. He says 6'4", 240. The website says 6'3", whatever the size. Like, he can play outside linebacker. He can play linebacker. He can play edge. Not sure where they're going to use him, but I like his film. When you have skills, it shows up no matter what conference you're playing in. I like having higher guys, guys from higher schools, but you've already landed a couple of them. Adding a depth piece like this late in the game, someone who, popped as a freshman, like he came in as a true freshman and had 60 tackles and an interception and a forced fumble. That's fine with me. Like, you're not asking him to do a whole lot. I mean, you're asking maybe him to come in. He'll probably redshirt, and then you get him for 3 years. And he's already played 2. Not a bad deal. So BC has their challengers in this case, but I like their chances. It's going to happen this week, so we'll find out soon. But it could be a nice little, a lot of these schools. I saw someone, was it Lime Brick School or Limestone School? There's all these like D2 schools that, have under-recruited players. And if you trust that BC can watch film and know what they're doing, they're nice pieces to add to build up and, add to your war chest. Would I expect him to be a day one starter? Absolutely not. No. But, get him out there, get him practicing, see what you got there. No, it can't be worse than that. All right. On tomorrow's show, we'll talk more about what's going on in the world of college football, transfer portal, and everything in between. My name is AJ Black. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Check out my work at Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. We have a new hockey writer. Anthony Smith of Eagles Daily is joining us. Thank you. I want to shout out Brett Ryder, who's been great through this whole process. But Anthony is graduating from BC. He's going to be our new hockey writer. We're going to have him on this podcast. He did the Conti Cast, which was a great hockey podcast. So I'm excited to have him on talking about BC hockey at some point soon. You get to see him. So check out him over at Eagle Insider. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me everywhere. And make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for subscribing. And I'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College. Your team every day.